Welcome to Fazza Love Poem. Subscribe now. The first time I looked into her eyes, I realized eternity was not a concept of stars or endless skies. It was right there, resting in her gaze. Her eyes were not just windows. They were entire worlds where time stopped and love stretched beyond imagination. I saw the map of my past, the present I was breathing, and the future that stretched endlessly before me. Every shade within them spoke in languages my soul already knew, reminding me of promises I had carried across lifetimes. Her eyes told me I was not lost anymore. I was found, anchored, and held. They were oceans without shores, galaxies without borders, horizons that refused to end. In them I felt my heart breathing differently, slower yet stronger, calmer yet more alive. And from that moment I knew I would never look away, for to look elsewhere would mean turning from eternity itself. Her eyes became my compass, my truth, my forever. Every glance she gave me felt like reading chapters written in starlight, each word flowing in the silent depth of her gaze. Her eyes carried history as if they had seen wars and peace, beginnings and endings, and still chose love as their only language. They were ancient and new at once, holding wisdom older than the skies yet tender as dawn's first light. When I drowned in them, I wasn't afraid. I felt reborn. Every fear I had carried dissolved when I saw forever in her gaze, as if her eyes whispered, "You were made for this, you were made for me." In their reflection I saw the man I longed to be, not broken, not searching but whole, complete, eternal. She wasn't just looking at me, she was seeing into me, touching places I never thought anyone could reach. And when she looked away, the universe dimmed, waiting breathlessly until her gaze returned to me again. Her eyes were not simply beautiful, they were sacred. They were the cathedral where my prayers found home, the sanctuary where silence became holy, the temple where eternity bowed its head. When she gazed at me, I felt time kneel, as though even the ticking of moments surrendered before her light. There was no past anymore, no future, only the vast expanse of forever flowing between us. I saw myself in her eyes, not as I was, but as love remade me, stronger, softer, infinite. Her eyes didn't just hold galaxies, they created them, and I could swear the stars themselves envied her glow. She could speak without words, command without sound, heal without touch, because her gaze carried every truth, every vow, every destiny. And I thought to myself, if I could live 1,000 lives, I would still want to lose myself in those same eyes. They were not just hers, they were the forever we both belonged to. There were nights I sat in silence, watching the stars scatter their light across the dark sky. Yet even they could not rival what I had seen in her gaze. The stars burned and faded, but her eyes never dimmed, never faltered, never lost their flame. They were constant, eternal fires that lit every corner of my soul. I could trace constellations in them, follow paths to places I never dreamed, and still find more waiting to be discovered. Each glance was a journey, each blink a chapter, each spark within them a life. I began to wonder if forever was not something you waited for, but something you found in someone's gaze, and chose never to leave. And I chose her eyes, again and again, because they carried me into tomorrows brighter than suns, softer than moons, truer than destiny. Her eyes became my sky, my map, my eternal horizon. Sometimes when words failed us, her eyes carried everything I needed. They told me she loved me when her lips stayed silent, told me she needed me when her hands were still, told me she would never leave when distance tried to whisper lies. They were the anchor that kept me steady, the wings that lifted me higher, the truth that erased doubt. I saw forever not in promises spoken but in glances shared, in silences where her eyes said more than poetry. Her gaze painted vows across the air, binding me to her without chains, only freedom. And in those moments I realized forever wasn't about endless time. It was about the depth of love etched into her eyes, the kind that made me believe eternity was already here, already alive, already mine. She was my forever, not because of the years we might have, but because her gaze carried a love that would never die. Her eyes became the rhythm of my days, the reason the morning light mattered, the comfort that lulled me into night. When I woke, I longed to see them. When I dreamed, I carried them with me. They followed me into silence, into chaos, into solitude. And yet, no matter how far life pulled me, her gaze was the home I returned to. I didn't just love her eyes, I lived inside them. They became the universe where I chose to exist, the air I breathed, the water that quenched me, the fire that warmed me. I would look into them and see not just her but us, our story written across centuries, our love mapped in constellations, our forever carved in starlight. Her eyes were both question and answer, mystery and revelation, beginning and end, and I promised myself, I will never look away because forever lives here within her gaze. The depth of her eyes frightened me at times, not because I feared what I saw, but because they held more of me than I had ever known. They mirrored my secrets, my wounds, my hopes, my dreams, and still reflected them back, with acceptance, with love. In her gaze I was not broken, I was whole. In her gaze I was not lost, I was found. Forever wasn't just a word anymore. It was the endless reflection of love, staring back at me. I understood then that to look into her eyes was to confront eternity itself, unafraid, unashamed. She carried my soul in her gaze, and I carried her forever in mine. Her eyes were not just hers, they were ours, boundless, immortal, and untouchable by time. And so I let myself drown in them willingly, knowing that drowning in her meant breathing forever. Her gaze was my eternity, my unbroken vow. When I think of all the beauty the world holds, the sunsets, the oceans, the mountains, it all feels like a prelude to her gaze. For none of it compares, none of it lasts the way her eyes do. Sunsets fade, oceans rage, mountains crumble, but her eyes remain, eternal and unchanging, carrying a forever that no force could undo. She gave me eternity not as a promise, but as a vision within her gaze, one I could see, touch, live and believe in. And so I never looked away, because to turn from her eyes would be to turn from life itself. She was not just my love, she was my eternity, my forever, my soul reflected in her gaze. And if I had only one truth to carry with me into infinity, it would be this: I saw forever in her eyes, and I chose to stay there, always. Even now, as the world changes and time folds itself into passing days, her eyes remain the constant where my soul rests. They hold the laughter we've shared, the tears we've survived, the dreams we've built, and the eternity still waiting ahead. Her gaze is not just beauty, it is memory, promise, and future intertwined. I see every lifetime we've ever lived, every lifetime we ever will, glowing softly in her eyes, reminding me that love never fades, it only deepens. Her gaze carries the map of forever, and I follow it willingly, knowing there is no other path, no other truth. I never looked away because her eyes became the home my soul had searched for through lifetimes. They are my endless journey and my final destination, my beginning and my eternity. And if the universe asked me to define forever, I would only need to whisper her eyes.